So let's talk long shots. This is what everybody loves, Steven. They want to bet a little to win a lot. And I get it. I hit a couple last year as well. It is a super awesome feeling. It's fun. It doesn't happen very often. But let's go ahead and take a look here at the long. And yes, one of mine already. Absolutely. You busted me. You knew it. You saw it. You read yes, Emiliano Grillo is one of my long shots here in this one. And it's for everything that you said. He actually is in the top. If I look over the top 20, if I look at the last 24 rounds, Steven, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There are 9 golfers ahead of Emiliano Grillo in my last 24 rounds model. He is 10th overall in my model. And so if that ever happens, I am always putting in a long shot outright ticket on a guy like that. If he is hitting the vast majority of the categories that I'm looking at, but there's probably like 2 of them, like there's probably to climb that high, he has to be hitting on the majority of the stuff I'm looking at. And then to be still in that 10 range, he's got to be really bad at a couple of things. And as we mentioned, look, he putts horribly. He's 127th in this field. You know, I mean, like he putts absolutely horribly. But maybe he can just get it rolling for 4 days. So, yes, Emiliano Grillo I have as a long shot. Brian Stewart, Stuard, if you have not heard of him. Brian Stewart I have as a long shot as well. When you look at what Brian Stewart has been able to do, one, not only course history here for Brian Stewart has been really good, but if you kind of look over the last 36 rounds, so like some long-term results here. 4th overall in this field in fairways gained. 7th overall in good drives. Finds himself in that upper half in proximity 150 to 175. He's 46th. He's 34th in strokes gained putting. So he's actually in the upper kind of quarter of the field in strokes gained putting. He is 62nd in approach. So again, upper half of the field, but his odds are super, super, super long. And so that's the type of guy that if I can find those numbers, right? If I can find a guy like Stewart who fits kind of in the upper half of all of the things that I'm looking for at 130 to 1 or plus. I mean, you could probably find longer odds than even 130 to 1. Another guy I'm looking at that fits that range, Tom Hoagie, is another guy that, again, super high in my model. I actually think he's a super talented guy as well. Just needs to really put 4 rounds together, Steven. And a guy that if you're looking at the models, again, hits in so many of the categories, but is just so bad in a couple of the other ones. But when someone hits in so many different categories, I love to put them in as a long shot. You can find him kind of in that 100-ish to 1 range, 90, 95, 100 on Hoagie as well. And then the last long shot that I have in this week, Joel Damon. And I guess it's not long shot. He's like 65, 70-ish to 1. Look, Damon is just a really, really good golfer. It's hard to take him seriously if you follow him on Twitter, if you follow him on social media. The guy's like always kidding and joking and whatever and all that. Like it's hard to take him seriously, but he actually is a super talented golfer. He played last week, which means he won on the tour. You had to win last week if you were to play, and he played last week, which means he has win equity. He can win tournaments. And so Joel Damon comes in as my final kind of long shot, and that's kind of a borderline because, like I said, he's like 66 to 70-ish or something like that to 1.
You're not alone on Damon because his odds have actually come down. As we record this Wednesday morning, he's mostly 50 to 55. There are some 60s still out there. I got a 60 on him too. I'm laughing again, man. I also have Joel Damon, and I also have Brian Stewart at 130 to 1. So, man, we are like simpatico this week. I love it. I didn't know how deep we wanted to go for long shots, so I'll just briefly mention I do also have a 70 to 1 ticket on Chris Kirk, who's top 10 in the model over the last 50 rounds that I'm using. A guy who literally had to finish T2 last year to maintain his tour status with a medical exemption that he was on, and he did it. So got a T2 finish at the SONY, albeit with those weird conditions last year that we talked about, but at least better than him playing like crap in those conditions. So 70 to 1, not bad on him. Couple other guys I'll mention. briefly here. You mentioned Brian Stewart. John Hasselbauer is a big fan of Denny McCarthy this week. If you look at very short form, he stands out in that regard. Top 10 over the last 24 rounds. He's another big short game specialist. Denny McCarthy at 80-1. And one other guy really deep. This is a guy I covered when I was working for the Korn Ferry Tour. Hank Lebiota, 180-1. Over his last 36 rounds, he's 12th in the model. Last 50 rounds, he's 19th. And he's a top 10 putter over those spans. So that's way up from 55th over his last 100 rounds. So this is a young player who the model is telling us is improving recently. And I will say guys like this, in a tournament like this at the beginning of the year, I will care a little bit more about recent form because these are the guys that are playing on the fall swing, right? Yeah. As opposed to some of these other PGA Tour golfers where it does really matter to them to play well and get FedEx Cup points so that they can maintain their status and play in tournaments for the rest of the year. So that's the last long shot I'll mention is Hank Lebiota at 180-1.